Okay, so this is part 9, and we have changed our schedule to be the review and conclusion part for today. So I want to make a housekeeping announcement formally. Originally, we started this semester anticipating that we would have 10 parts of the TOEFL iBT speaking section, but because of scheduling changes to fit the semester schedule, we've made some adjustments, and so today will be our last session. So the two original sections on templates that you can use, I have combined them in part 8. So all of the templates for all 6 tasks are in part 8, and I will review them briefly today as well. So if you would like to have some more examples, I encourage you to go onto the EasyTest website we have in the library. There are plenty of questions and model answers that you can use, that you can look at and practice and try to work on your own as well. But I've developed the templates last week. Hopefully they will be of use to you. So today we will review and talk about integrating the speaking practice with other aspects of the TOEFL, the reading, the listening, and the writing, as well as what you can do in your daily life. We've talked about this at the beginning of the semester. We will talk more as we go along today. So I want to start by reviewing some major points of the big things that we talked about. The first thing that you should remember is that the TOEFL iBT is used mostly for studies and jobs in English-speaking contexts. So know why you need to take the TOEFL iBT. It's very expensive to take, so know why you are taking it, for what purpose, and make sure that you plan enough time and money. It's very expensive and time-consuming to take it and to prepare for it. So make sure you plan enough time and money, and to take it at least twice, because you never know what will happen the first time. Make sure that you give yourself some room to improve, some room to screw up a little bit. This is a big suggestion that I gave at the beginning of the semester. And train yourself, not just specifically for the different aspects, the different sections. Train yourself not just holistically in terms of improving your English skills, but specifically know that you are going to take a long test. The TOEFL takes about 4 hours to complete. So train yourself for the long test session. Set up your schedule so that you will do a series of questions across the long period of time, the long haul, 4 hours. And you will get a sense of what kind of adjustments you need to make in your schedule. You will get a sense of how you perform at your best. So, very important suggestion for you. Okay, another thing that I'd like to remind you all of is that the TOEFL iBT is extremely structured. In other words, it is a very practical and pragmatic exam. You have to prepare specifically for the different task types, for the different questions, and this is true not just of the speaking section, but also of the other sections as well. You can definitely improve with practice as long as you follow what is expected of you. When you think about your abilities, because it's so focused on English in use at school, in universities, it's important that you test your academic English abilities by yourself and think about your English abilities as they apply to your academic English. What that means is you can get very good at talking about all kinds of topics like the news or popular culture or daily conversations, but what will really help you and what will really improve your score is if you grasp the major templates, the major language that you should use and master for the academic English that you will use at school and in universities or in graduate school. Set a goal. Remember that the full score is 120. Know what kind of scores you need to get and plan to reach them. The structure of the speaking section is, as you know by now, I hope that I've made it very clear, divided into 6 tasks. The first 2 are independent tasks. The 4 that follow are called the integrated tasks. Task 1 is the independent task that is open choice. So normally it asks you to talk about an experience you had or a preference that you have. The second is limited choice. So you need to choose between 2 to 3 options, and they are very short, but you need to react very quickly and make decisions. And I'll show you the templates later again for your answers at large. But know that these 2 questions almost always deal with topics that you can relate to in your daily experience. So practice reacting quickly and knowing the structure of how to take notes effectively here. Tasks 3 and tasks 3 and 4 are the reading plus listening integrated tasks. One is a campus conversation, one is a lecture. And the last 2 tasks, the more difficult integrated tasks, are listening only. Again, one will be a campus situation, a conversation, one will be a lecture, and remember that each of these tasks fulfills a specific goal. Your ability to react quickly, to summarize information, your ability to make a decision, to listen carefully for details, to show logic and progression, to answer specific questions. There are different kinds of tasks that are tested. And so make sure, be especially aware of what you need to accomplish. Okay, remember that as you are practicing, you should think about your answers in terms of 4 different kinds of grading criteria. The first one is called the general description, so the overall score. So how did you perform overall? The second is your delivery, and this of course relates to your fluency and your accuracy. Remember that all aspects of language matter. You should pronounce your words correctly, you should use correct grammar, and you should of course use the right words and use good transitions. These are all graded holistically, but you should have a sense of how the rubric functions. Finally, make sure that your answers are always on point and logically developed. So general description, delivery, language use, and finally topic development. These are the 4 grading criteria. You can go back to our previous lectures to review them in detail, but think about your answers and your practice in these 4 terms. So we did a section also on taking notes, and I used examples of different kinds of ways of taking notes. Remember a few things. Remember that you can get unlimited scrap paper. They will give you paper in the test situation, and so don't be afraid to take notes and to use up paper. Remember that you should anticipate what will come. Anticipate the task and the kind of note-taking that you will need to do, whether it's a conversation or a lecture, whether you should write very quickly. Remember that you should anticipate what you will need to write down based on the tasks. Remember also that you should organize them in a way. I've suggested using columns. Make sure that you organize them in columns when necessary. At least you should make them useful for you and organized in a way that you can deliver your answers coherently. You can find the information, the details that you need coherently, and make sure that your notes are useful enough that you can deliver a fluent and accurate answer overall. Remember that in your notes you should actively practice abbreviations, symbols, and make sure that you can use Chinese when appropriate. And these are skills that translate not just into the other sections of the TOEFL, the reading, listening, and writing, they also transfer into real life. When you are in a university setting, your ability to take notes accurately and effectively will benefit you in the long run. So this is a very worthwhile investment. Think of it as a specific skill that you should develop, not just within the confines, within the limitations of the TOEFL IBT, but as an academic skill in general. Think of your note-taking skills as a very useful skill that you can use in university settings. I want to point out here that taking notes by hand has been proven to be more useful than typing them. So practicing this handwritten form of notes it will actually help you in your studies, whether it's in English or in Chinese. So let's go into the 6 tasks, the specific tasks and the outline templates. So in other words, I can't go into all of the specific details of the answers, the model answers, but I can tell you here, I can remind you of what will be tested and how you should practice and how you should set up your template in your mind and in your notes so that you can always deliver an answer that is clear and well developed. So for task 1, you should state your main point. You should transition to the supporting details. You should state your first reason because it asks you to choose a preference, open choice. State a second reason and conclude by restating your point. And so your notes should reflect this. You should have a main idea which you will remember. You should remember a transition that you will use to develop your supporting details. This can be a very canned response. And then write out, most importantly, write out the 2 reasons in your notes. And remember to restate your point in the short time that you have. So this is the template outline for task 1. Task 2 is actually very similar. You should state your choice, repeat the choice because it's a closed, limited choice question. You should transition to the supporting details. Again, this can be a canned response. Don't use the same one. Memorize another one. Give 2 reasons, first reason and second reason, and then restate. These 2 questions are in many ways very similar, but they should be distinguished enough, they should be differentiated and changed enough to the point where it doesn't sound like you're repeating a template. So my piece of advice here in review is that these 2 questions, these 2 tasks shouldn't be answered in exactly the same way, but they should be similar. Okay, so what about task 3? For your template for task 3, remember that it starts with a reading. It's a campus announcement. So there will be a letter or an article or some kind of notice that you will need to read. State the reading first, very shortly. Give a supporting detail, a reason that this announcement or article or letter exists. After that, you should transition to the listening. This is probably the major part. Give the 2 reasons that the speaker, one of the speakers, depending on which one is speaking out the reasons for agreeing or disagreeing, for supporting or not supporting the main point of the reading. Remember to state out and summarize these reasons carefully and give a conclusion. Remember, task 3 is a lot about summarizing. It's not really that much about stating your own opinions. You should stick to what you read and listen to because that is what task 3 requires. Okay. Task 4, the lecture. Remember that you should start from the central topic of the reading. And remember that the lecture that follows will illustrate or contradict or build in some way on the central topic of the reading. So make sure that you start from the reading and give a couple of details that highlight you have understood the reading. You can't summarize everything, you won't have time, but give a couple of supporting details in the reading. Remember to give a transition, just like in tasks 1 and 2. Always transition. Task 3 as well, but transition to the lecture. Give details of the lecture as needed, and finally give a conclusion. Answer the questions specifically. Remember that task 4 is also very much about summarizing. This time, a more academic topic as opposed to a campus student life topic. Okay, for task 5, remember that starting from task 5, you will need to state your understanding. And specifically for task 5, you need to combine your abilities in previous tasks together. So start always task 5 by summarizing the problem. After you have summarized the problem, you should transition quickly to your solutions. There are normally 2 that will appear in your listening, and you should quickly state the 2 different possibilities with caveats. This is a way that is very safe and very organized. It will guarantee that your listener understands that you have covered all of the basics. So state the 2 possibilities, but their shortcomings, and state your opinion and your preference clearly. Don't waver between. Just like task 2, you shouldn't waver between. You can always concede a point. You've conceded already in the 3rd part. State your opinion and your preference, and then remember, give 2 reasons and conclude. If this template looks like a hybrid of previous tasks, that's because it is. It tests your abilities of building together different skills and different tasks. So make sure that you have mastered previous tasks before you tackle the more difficult ones here. This is my suggestion, and it should flow very easily. Finally, for task 6, this is the longest, probably the most difficult task. Remember that you should state the lecture topic and give 1, maybe 2, but normally 1 is enough, 1 illustrating detail. You should summarize the first part and then summarize the second part. There should be 2 parts of the long lecture, and so make sure that you give short summaries in order. Finally, give your conclusion by answering the question. So remember that task 6 is designed so that there will be a lot of details, and you might not necessarily remember all of them. So make sure you can take notes and focus on what is being asked as you summarize. Focus on the specific questions and structure your answers. If you can successfully complete the previous 5 tasks, you will have the skills, I believe, to finish task 6 appropriately. Okay, so I want to reinforce this idea that preparing for the speaking section shouldn't be divorced from preparing for other sections of the TOEFL IBT. Remember that your skills in reading, your skills in listening, your skills in writing will help you in your speaking preparation. The better you can read an academic text, the faster and more accurately you can do so. The better you can take notes on reading, the better you can listen to things and take notes and summarize them in writing, stating your opinion. The more practice you have in your writing, the templates you have fleshed out in writing will help you in speaking. These skills are often taught separately, but the whole point of the integrated tasks is so you can practice integrating your skills. Language doesn't function in one way or another. We always have to integrate different skills when we're actually using our language in daily life. And these skills mutually help each other. So as you are integrating your skills, remember that One skill that cuts across all the sections is your note-taking. I spend a lot of time practicing note-taking. If you can master it, if you can master note-taking, you will have a very solid foundation on which you can prepare all the sections. You will also have a very solid foundation in preparing for other academic assessments, school assignments, or other achievement tests like the GRE or the TOEIC. You will have other things to do that you will do better once you master your note-taking skills. Remember that you can do some cross-section practice when you're specifically practicing for the sections. Ask yourself some questions on the reading and listening sections that you can use to practice for the speaking section. Try to use the same tasks, the same practice questions that you have in different ways. And finally, ask yourself generally, how can I improve my academic skills? How can I think about my skills in academia more generally? So can I read and listen and write and speak effectively? Can I summarize? Can I describe? Can I compare and contrast? Can I give supporting details? Can I write and think logically? These are academic skills that you can integrate and use, and think about your skills not just in terms of the 4 skills of listening, reading, writing, and speaking, but think of them in terms of academic skills, whole academic skills. How well can I function in academic settings? I've given a lot of advice over the past few weeks. I will try to integrate them here, but offer you 3 last things. Remember that you should practice and train yourself holistically, which means English is a whole skill. Language is a whole skill that, of course, is specified into 4 different sections and tailored for the TOEFL iBT. But think about your language both holistically but also specifically, as you need to use them in different settings. But think about how you use them generally, overall in your life. Remember that practicing for the TOEFL should not just be a focus on your practice questions and your academic skills. You should feel yourself improving as a student in the process, and that should be in many ways a very enjoyable thing. Enjoy the process and deal with the good times and the bad times with this mindset. I think helps. Remember that you can always improve. There's no such thing as not being good at language learning. You can always improve as long as you enjoy and fight through the process. And finally, take care of yourself. Physically, it's very important, but also mentally. Remember that you should give yourself enough time to rest, and don't force yourself to attain things that take time, actually. Language skills and test-taking skills take a lot of time to build. I want to thank you all for listening and participating in these videos. I will see you all next semester. I wish you all the very best in your final exams and your TOEFL exams. Thank you all very much.